the day before we were supposed to open, I was out with our trail crew, and we just had a quick meeting, and I said something like a flood of biblical proportion could come, and we're going to open the bike park. And sure enough, we had like
Welcome to Trail Effect. I am your host, Josh Blum. Trail Effect is a show that dives into the stories behind trails, the communities that embrace trails, and the people who rely on trails as a way of life. The goal of this show is to turn the stories you will hear from our guests into useful knowledge that can be applied to your community while providing some entertaining and inspirational content. Guests on Trail Effect include trail builders, board members, community leaders, volunteers, and regular people who really enjoy trails. For episode 179, we have Luke Krolikowski, the bike park manager of the Farside Bike Park, located at Chestnut Mountain Resort in Galina, Illinois. The Farside Bike Park is a relatively newer lift-access bike park located in a topographically rich part of the upper Midwest known as the Driftless Area. Luke dives into all things Farside during our conversation. If you live in the upper Midwest and you haven't checked out the Farside Bike Park yet, you should, as we are embarking on fall and time will be running out before winter hits again. Cooley Creative is the title sponsor for this episode. They design and build custom websites, as well as help companies with branding, photography, and e-commerce. Cooley Creative was started in Wisconsin, but is now based out of Bend, Oregon. Jared from Cooley Creative is a friend of mine. We've traveled together on multiple mountain bike trips, and sometimes he sends it. For more information about Cooley Creative, head on over to www.dudejustsendit.com. Yes, that's right, www.dudejustsendit will get you to the Cooley Creative website, so check it out. I would like to highlight another affiliate partner of the Trail Effect podcast, which is the Loam Pass. The Loam Pass is your one pass for 40-plus destination bike parks. When you purchase the Loam Pass, you get 2 days at each partner location, as well as an additional third day for half off. That means if you went on some epic road trip, you'd have over 80 days of access to some of the best bike parks, period. When you purchase your Loam Pass through the affiliate link found on the Trail Effect website or found in the show notes, you will receive free pass protection. Yes, that's right, free pass protection. And you'll be supporting the Trail Effect podcast as well. Some of the 40-plus destinations include Ride Rock Creek, Ride Canoga, Angel Fire Bike Park, the Keweenaw Adventure Company, Chestnut Mountain Resort, Jared's Place, Spirit Mountain, Marquette Mountain, Burke Mountain, Howler Bike Park, and many more. So click on the link provided for the Loam Pass, support the Trail Effect podcast, and get free pass protection. Thank you. Cattle Mountain Apparel, the brand that was built by travelers, hikers, trail runners, and mountain bikers, with the motto of venture far, laugh hard. While I definitely use Cattle Mountain apparel for mountain biking, Cattle Mountain is also my go-to choice for daily wear as it is super functional and comfortable. Cattle Mountain Apparel also offers a lifetime gear repair program with the goal of extending the life of their products while reducing waste in the process. If you ever damage any of your apparel, Cattle Mountain will repair it for free for life. By using the affiliate link found in the show notes or on the Trail Effect website, a small commission will come back to the Trail Effect podcast, which helps to cover the cost of expenses for keeping this show going. Now on to the Trail Effect with Luke Krolikowski and the Farside Bike Park. Here we are today on Trail Effect. I have Luke Krolikowski. Luke is the bike park manager at the Farside Bike Park at Chestnut Mountain Resort, located in Galina, Illinois, which is what a lot of people consider as the tri-state area. It's right on the border of Illinois, Iowa, and Wisconsin. For those that have listened to this podcast quite a bit, they'll know that's also in what we refer to as the Driftless Area. So it's got pretty incredible topography that most people don't really understand until they visit it, correct?
Absolutely, yeah.
So how's it going today, Luke?
Oh, it's great. Yeah, it's a beautiful day here. I actually live in Dubuque. It's about 40 miles away from Chestnut. Yeah, it's gorgeous. I got out for a little ride this morning, and yeah, just kind of hanging out, gearing up for the podcast here.
Yeah, well, let's get into your backstory. You know, we were talking a little bit before we hit record, and you mentioned that you spent some time in Michigan, or maybe even grew up in Michigan. But let's get your backstory into mountain biking, and then, how that transitioned into your role at Chestnut specifically.
Okay, yeah, sure. So I actually grew up in central Illinois. So it's funny, you were just talking about the Driftless area and how you don't realize this is here. You don't think of it as Illinois or Iowa, because it's pretty spectacular, right on the Mississippi there. But yeah, so about 10 years ago, I moved to Michigan and I started working at a little ski resort called Crystal Mountain. I started working as an instructor. I fell in love with it. I was working like a very seasonal job, and it was great because it allowed me to basically do what I wanted to do in the winter. And eventually I would get kind of bored in the summers. I'm relatively new to mountain biking. I got a mountain bike during COVID, kind of to fill that void of, the 9 months where you can't ski, right? And I never looked back. I started coaching for like a not-for-profit up there called Norte. That was really cool. It fit in really well with my background as a ski instructor and ski coach. And then Crystal, I started working at Crystal full time when they started building a bike park after, I think it was 2020. I should say they started like revamping their bike park, but they brought in a crew, actual would-be Crystal employees, to build trails, bought racks for the chairlifts, and kind of did that. So I got some experience doing a little bit of trail work there, started to do some instructing there just a little bit, and then taking care of the bike fleet a little bit. So then fast forward to last fall, I saw posting for my current position, which is snow sports director, mountain bike director, manager at Chestnut. And it just seemed to be kind of perfect. So now here we are.
Yeah. So you moved back out of Lower Michigan, back to the homeland of Illinois. So that's a pretty interesting transition in that you didn't, so many people got into mountain biking during COVID. I'm glad that, while we went through the COVID boom, and now I think people in I guess we could say the bike world are now dealing with what would be known as the COVID bust when it comes to, a lot of product
inventory. Yeah.
But I think the upside of that is still that we've kept a lot of riders riding. Obviously, case in point yourself, right?
Yeah, for sure. I think so. I mean, so many people that I'm chatting with getting off of the lift or, buying tickets or through our Facebook or Instagram, there's definitely people that have been doing it forever. There's also a lot of people that COVID happened and I needed to get outside and I had a little bit of stimulus money and I went and bought a bike and, they're like, wow, we got a bike park in Illinois. Cool.
Yeah. And we're going to get to the whole entire Chestnut Resort because it is a true 4-season resort. But let's roll into, so you got into the snow sports side of things first, being that it was last fall.
Mm-hmm.
And Farside as a bike park has now, this would be technically maybe, I don't know how you guys categorize it, but maybe season number 2, but there was a soft opening, I want to say in fall of 2022.
Yes, exactly. They didn't have the racks on the chairs, and they really only had 2 trails open. So I think that's exactly what we say is like a soft opening, and it was mostly local riders in the kind of this tri-state area. And then, last year had the racks on the chairs, kind of finished, I guess, what they consider phase 2 of the building process. And, now have what we know it as right now. So this is kind of the third, I guess, second and a half season of the bike park being open. It's going pretty well. We've got, we did a couple of cool things this year. We double the racks on the chairs. So, when we are bringing in riders, lift lines are pretty mellow. We have a rental fleet now. We have a bike shop with a certified bike mechanic who can, if you break your derailleur hanger or trying to think of, it's a lot of wheels and top tires and stuff that we deal with, but I can get you in and out and back riding that day. So got some lessons happening now. I've got a couple of instructors, that have actually all 3 of us who are teaching lessons come from like ski instruction, or ski race coaching. But, so.
Let's back up a little bit and talk about your transition from Michigan to Illinois and maybe some of the stuff that you brought with you and maybe some of the stuff that was vastly different, if there was any, in terms of what your experience was with doing some trail maintenance and trail building in Michigan, and now that you have control of the whole park.
Yeah.
How that kind of worked out.
We were kind of chatting before we hit record about the winter. The spring was nuts. It just seemed like it rained nonstop, Yeah, it was a big adjustment for me coming from Michigan. Everything that I rode up there was on a sand dune, right? So a little bit of rain or a lot of bit of rain, we were riding as soon as it was done raining, and that was when it was perfect. That was when it was hero dirt. And so, when I came into town, I started in October last year. Just kind of trying to get a lay of the land. Everybody said, so much potential, but it closes down too much. And I'm like, well, we're going to change that. Why are we closing down so much?
I know where this is going because I live in the Driftless area.
Yeah. So sure enough, spring happened, and I said this really dumb thing the day before we were supposed to open. I was out with our trail crew, and we just had a quick meeting, and I said something like a flood of biblical proportion could come, and we're going to open the bike park. And sure enough, we had like a half inch of rain, but just because of our kind of our clay soil here, it just gets super greasy, and because it rains so much in the spring, it just never really dried out fully. You know what I mean? Yeah. So that was definitely an adjustment. We didn't get a full weekend in at the bike park until halfway through July. We were shut down at least one day every weekend due to rain.
It was interesting too, because I was talking with a good friend back in February, and we were both, kind of commenting on the concern we had over how dry it was and how forest fire season, especially in the northern parts of Wisconsin and Minnesota and Michigan, could be like bad, right? And then all of a sudden we got all the moisture that we didn't get over the winter, because I was mountain biking in La Crosse on dry, dusty dirt in February and going skiing the same day.
Yeah.
Because the west slopes and southern facing slopes all were dry, and we didn't have frost in the ground this year.
Sure. Right.
But that obviously changed.
It sure did. I keep joking with, people here in this area. Like I guess I brought it, because as soon as I moved into town, it didn't snow over the winter, and then it only rained in the spring and early summer. So I don't know what I stopped doing the rain dance or something.
It was pretty crazy. I mean, I have seen a lot of rain events, and while we didn't get anything of what you said of biblical proportions, we got enough that it definitely, which is good that we didn't get any of biblical proportions, because that can get messy.
Yeah.
So as you took over the bike park, did you, out of the gate, did you make any changes? Were there some things that you wanted to address to kind of, I'm going to say, bring it up to what its potential could be based on what you have now versus, what it was? Because to put this into context, I showed up there once in 2022, and it was the last day it was open, so it has that really soft opening year. And I showed up there again once in 2023. It was probably mid-July. And so I know the chair and the bike tray situation of how it was, where there was like a bike tray every 4 chairs, I think it was.
Yeah.
And I remember when I came back this year and saw that it was like a bike tray every other chair, I was like, wow, this changes the dynamic, because you just wait before, and now you could, almost just ride in, and if it's not super busy, and hop on the chair.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there was definitely, there are a couple of things that, like, right out of the gate, I thought we should address. And in full disclosure, they actually, the GM had plans to get those racks on those chairs before I was even part of the equation. So I think they knew that was an issue, last year. Basically, when I started talking to riders, as soon as I got into town, I started going to our IMBA chapter is called Timber, Tri-State Mountain Bike Riders, and basically they said, there's so much potential. Communication is a little lacking, So I thought, okay, well, that's an easy thing to address, So I was able to take over kind of the dedicated Facebook page, the dedicated Instagram, and then making sure, Trail Forks and Trailbot, all that stuff is updated as, basically daily. And then kind of thinking about where are our riders coming from, Sure, there's a lot of local riders, but we're definitely, tapping into the Chicago market, Milwaukee, hopefully as far away as like, Minneapolis, St. Louis, you know, but I'm kind of like finding this like 3 hour area. So yes, we do have a chance of weather and rain, but if we can make that call 3 hours before, then people aren't driving. They're not showing up to come ride. Surprise, the bike park is closed, or they don't have to call. Now they don't have to call the front desk. As you mentioned, we are a Four Seasons resort. We have a hotel. Before they were just, riders were calling the front desk saying, "Hey, are you guys going to be open?" And it was, it's maybe like a college student on home for break that doesn't know anything, doesn't know necessarily anything about mountain biking, doesn't necessarily want to. And you're just like, I don't know. So I think that's been a huge step in the right direction. I mentioned we brought in the rental fleet. The crew, so the people would constantly ask like, "Hey, do you guys have rentals? Do you guys have rentals?" And they actually, they had the bikes. They just didn't have anybody that could work on the bikes. And kind of part of having a rental fleet is you have to, make sure the bikes are in good condition, that they're riding, that they're, you're not putting somebody in danger on a bike that's, damaged or broken or whatever. So getting that rental fleet going, I think that was another positive step. And with that, I kind of my right hand guy, Quentin, he's our chief mechanic. He's an awesome mechanic, and but it's a big job. Like, if we have 12 bikes that are in rotation right now, and they come back and they get beat up, so it takes a lot to get them back in shape. But the other really cool thing that brought was, if you're out riding and you get a flat tire or whatever happens, we've got somebody that can fix your bike real quick. The trail crew supervisor told me that he would have stuff he would have tools or spare tubes or whatever, bacon strips if he needs them in his car, and they'd be like running to their car to like try to get people back rolling, but it was a less than ideal situation for sure.
And I can tell you, the last time I was there, we met in person, and I could just tell just from your presence, it was a vastly different situation, because you had someone actually greeting you and someone that knew about mountain biking and was a mountain biker, right? Where that wasn't happening last season. And so that was a huge welcome change, at least that I noticed.
Yeah, so we have a dedicated crew, obviously. And the trail supervisor I mentioned, Tim, he bought a mountain bike. He comes from a BMX background. And he's definitely like getting into the sport. We've actually had a blast this season, like riding together and kind of helping me figure out the trails and stuff like that. But not like he's been in Chestnut for a long time, and then we have one other guy in crew who's a pretty dedicated mountain biker, and we get out and ride a couple of times a week. And other than that, though, that was the only people that rode bike at Chestnut before I came. And I think, we have a really cool bike park. We have awesome terrain, but at the end of the day, like that customer service is crucial. If you don't have somebody that is welcoming and saying like, "Hey, come check us out," people they're probably not gonna want to come back. They're gonna see that as a bad time. So yeah, I hope, and I should say it's definitely, I have an awesome team. Even for not riding a lot of bikes, the trail crew does awesome work, and now that it's finally stopped raining, our trails are, they're like perfect right now. We got a little bit of rain on Friday night, but it was just enough for dust control. And by Sunday, after we had a pretty good day on Saturday, it was absolutely hero dirt. And I probably say that a lot on the social media and the trail forks, but it was hero dirt. It was awesome.
Well, and we can get hero dirt here, in those right conditions. So
yeah.
Since you've been there, I don't know if you're able to look back and see what numbers were like prior to you showing up. Have numbers increased this year from what you can tell? And then what is that radius of people coming in from? Like, where are you typically pulling from as far as ridership right now?
Yeah, so number wise, I don't have an exact figure, but I believe the best day that they had before was just about 80, was 79, and that was their kind of their opening day last year. On our opening day, we did when we and mind you, our opening day was pushed back 2 weeks. We did it was just under 120. I think it was 117, and we're averaging right at 80 Saturday and Sunday, about 30 on Fridays. We have one more Friday left. We'll stay open Saturdays and Sundays through September into October. So that's kind of like my magic number. I figure if I hit 80, that's where that means that we're bringing in some more riders than had been there before. Where are they coming from? They're definitely coming from kind of all over this like upper Midwest area. Another thing I did this spring, I kind of did like a little tour and hit bike shops and went to local like IMBA chapters or like volunteer digs. I went to Camber in Chicago. I ended up, doing, I think I hit 50 bike shops in about a 4 week stretch, which was pretty cool. And handing out some stickers and flyers and stuff like that. And we have, some incentives for bike shops that they're sending people our way. But yeah, Chicago, we're obviously getting a lot of riders from Chicago, and that comes from the winter. That's where most of our clientele, our skiers and snowboarders are coming from. But I'm definitely seeing people from Milwaukee. We're starting to see some people from like central Illinois up kind of by you in La Crosse, Wisconsin. I get a lot of people hear a lot of people saying they're coming from there. So, my goal is to kind of just keep branching out. We have people kind of coming from, like I said, like a 2.5 hour, 3 hour radius. And I'm hoping next year we can keep expanding that, maybe make it a 4 hour radius next year. And, and there's a lot here. Dubuque has like 4 awesome trail systems right now. Platteville, Wisconsin, which is just it's about 30 miles or 30 minutes away from Chestnut. There's cool mountain biking there. So there's a lot of opportunity, and it's kind of budding and growing right now. So I think that we've got, we have the potential to make this a mountain bike tourist location,
Oh yeah, for sure. And having the lift access is critical, and you guys got it. Let's talk about your trails.
Okay.
Let's kind of give a lay of the land of what you have to offer and maybe some feedback as far as like what some rider favorites are, what you've heard or what you you don't have counters, so you can't really like get official data, but like what kind of feedback people are giving and where you see people riding the most.
Okay, sure. Yeah. So right now we have 8 trails if we kind of count our skills area. That skills area is kind of like a lappable, you can pedal up it, or it leads you into some of the other downhill trails. There's 3 sections to that. The first section has a couple of berms, a couple of really small jumps. And then we have like a smallish medium jump section. And then we have like a drop section, a blue and black drop section. From there, we have like a kind of our beginning green downhill trail. That's the name of the trail, green downhill. We'll maybe address that next year too. But it's it's pretty flowy, pretty wide, pretty straightforward. It's definitely your first run when you come to Chestnut after the skills area. Then we have a couple of blues. Watchtower basically kind of expands and in fact merges into green downhill. It just brings in a little bit more rocks and a little bit more exposed routes, and the trail's a little narrower. There are a couple of like side hit jumps, but no like tabletops or doubles or anything like that. And then we have what I think is probably the rider favorite jump line. Everybody that I ride with and everybody that I talk to guest wise loves jump line. And it's just a blue jump trail. We actually we kind of have found that when we're doing lessons, it's super flowy, and it's wide. So it's even wider than like the green downhill trail, just because there are a couple of different options on the tabletops. but it's actually, if you're not trying to get air, it's fun, and if you are trying to get air, it's the jumps get pretty. I would say they're medium, medium size. Probably 15 foot is the largest jump at the end of it. Kind of go over to a little bit more techie stuff on kind of on the other side of the road. It's rocky, so we have a couple of like black trails on that side, and then I would say they're probably kind of like blue black. The first we have a couple of good like, hey, I'm going to check out a black diamond, trail. That's True Love and Rock and Roll. True Love gets just a little bit narrower and starts to bring in some rock. Rock and Roll then it leans into that techie stuff, and it has rock drops right up at the beginning. There are ride-arounds for them, so they're not mandatory, but they're the first two are probably rollable. I think the second two might not be rollable, but they're, like I said, there's ride-arounds. And then those two merge together, and we start introducing some doubles and some tighter corners, but it's pretty fun. And then we have our kind of our two true black diamonds, Remy's Ridge and Not So Wee. Remy's Ridge has a lot of doubles and is loose rock and tight corners. And then Not So Wee is, I would say, a combination of that tech, and then it has some bigger tabletops on that one. I think we get up to 35-foot tabletops. They're pretty big. So,
what is your personal favorite?
It's jump line or rock and roll. Those are definitely my definitely. If I'm doing open air closing sweep, I usually try to let the guys or the other patrollers pick first. But if it gets up to me, I'll pick jump line. It took me a little while to dial it in, and figure it and be able to figure out the right speed to clear everything. But now that I am, it's really fun. They're really well built.
As far as rider feedback, what kind of feedback have you guys been taking in terms of what people like to see there, what people have been really enjoying there, and stuff like that?
Yeah, this year, we're getting a lot of very positive feedback. As far as condition of the trails there, I think that the crew's been able to spend more time. So like I mentioned, they're very well, they're manicured right now, Jump line I mentioned. So one of our patrollers was kind of an avid rider last year and kind of that soft year before. He basically said it was pretty hard to actually get air and clear the jumps on jump line because they were, trail was getting narrower, grass was growing in the middle of it, and it was really hard to maintain speed. And now it's, because our crew has been able to spend a bit more time out there, it's in really good shape. We have this year we have a season pass, which we didn't have in the past, which makes a lot of sense, right? We kind of need to model this after the ski industry, right? And that's going to be your most loyal customers. So people have really appreciated having that season pass because we see. I mentioned this. We have one more Friday night. That Friday night has proved to be like a season pass holder. We have a crew from Rockford that comes out every Friday, and it's about 15 guys, and they just spin laps for the entire 4 hours. I don't think they take a sip of water. They're just spin laps. So yeah, of course, cutting back the lift lines. That people talk about that a lot. They're pretty psyched that we've got those extra racks on the chair, and yeah, every other chair has a rack on it. So
yeah, that is pretty incredible. Let's roll into how this translates into the bigger picture in terms of Chestnut Mountain Resort. So just to kind of paint a picture, at least from my perspective, Chestnut Mountain Resort is a 4-season resort. It's got Segway tours, which I didn't even know was a thing still until I showed up there for the bike park. It's got is it a mountain coaster or a mountain slide? I always get those confused.
It's an alpine slide.
Alpine slide.
Yeah, so yeah.
It's got an alpine slide, it's got a zip line, it's got mini golf, it's got a restaurant, it's got hotel. What am I missing?
Did you say frisbee golf?
I didn't say frisbee golf.
Frisbee golf. It has an incredible vista that even if you're just coming to walk around a little bit, does not look like anywhere else in Illinois. It's spectacular. And it's 10 miles away or 10 minutes away from Galina, which is obviously pretty big, kind of a tourist area in northwestern Illinois here. Yeah, I mean Chestnut is there is a lot to do, and it's a very family, kind of family oriented resort. The restaurant's great, but yeah, if you were, I think one of my big goals is first of all, I want everybody to ride bikes. So I'm hoping that people are coming to Chestnut for that purpose of riding bikes, and then when it gets too dark to ride, then they'll play mini golf. But even if if you are, like you ride, but the rest of your family doesn't ride, you can come out. You can spend the day spinning laps while everybody else is playing mini golf or hitting the slide or hitting the zip line. Hanging out at the restaurant. Looking over the Mississippi there, stuff like that. Yeah, I think there's so much potential here. Like I mentioned, with Galina being so close, I think we can get a lot of people from a lot of different spots. It's a little bit underrated, right? Or under the radar right now.
More generally speaking, we're about, I mean, I've said this before on the podcast a handful of times. We're like 40 years or so behind the ski industry in terms of maturity from a business
Absolutely.
perspective and everything. And, mountain biking obviously has been around, we're going to say for all practical purposes since the 80s, but really late 80s, early 90s. But if you think about those early days of skiing, that was a long time ago. And there's a lot happened in that time frame. And we're now starting to see bike parks like yours pop up in a lot of more unsuspecting locations, which is just going to help grow the pie of users even bigger, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I try to, I use that analogy all the time with, my crew and with the, like general manager and CFO, like, yeah, this idea of a bike park at a resort, it's in its infancy, and there is a lot of, there's going to be some growing pains, but we have to kind of look at it. There is a model in place, right? And that is the ski industry. And that's something that Chestnut's been doing for a really long time, so if we kind of look at, what works for that, what doesn't work for that, then we have an idea, what direction to go. I think a really good example of that is, we have a huge part of our business in the summer is weddings, right? Great spot to get married. You're looking at that, that beautiful view of the Mississippi and the Driftless Area. But last year they were closing the bike park down every time they had a wedding that was earlier than 4. And my point was, okay, well, you guys wouldn't close down, you guys wouldn't shut the chairlifts down in the winter for anything other than lightning, right? So we have to think about that the same way for the bike park, So this year, and the events coordinator, she's been great to work with. We compromised. We just basically reroute the riders either through the parking lot or figure out a way that they're not interfering with the wedding, but they can still ride. They can still keep going till 4, and it worked out. It's worked out stunningly.
I know it. I was going to ask you earlier, and it just popped into my brain as you were saying that. Before we hit record, I had mentioned that I think my first time going to Chestnut was in the mid to late 90s for ski racing, but actually I lied. It was actually in the early 90s for mountain biking. I just remembered that.
Oh,
and yeah. So I was going to ask you how much feedback or how many people have talked about coming there. It would have been in like 95 or 96 for the Cactus Cup, the Specialized Cactus Cup, which was like literally on the ski hill. Cause that was the original model of gravity mountain biking, was mow a path down your ski hill.
Right. Yeah. Yep. Kind of a huck and pray. Yeah. Yes, I have people tell me about Cactus Cup all the time. And I think that I'm still working on it. I've got a lot of work to do, but I think, getting a race or two at Chestnut is going to be the next step, and big goal for mine for next season.
I just saw, well, it must have been maybe close to a month ago now. You also had like a beer festival with going.
Yeah. Yeah. That was the Galina Brew Fest. And I think there were like 40 breweries that came. Of course, it was during operation hours of the bike park. So I kind of saw it from afar, but yeah, I mean, it kind of just goes back to there's a lot going on, and there's a lot of potential at Chestnut all across the board, not just for us, for our bike park, but for everything. So we have a couple of events like that. I kind of think that we could probably do a few more, but yeah, we're learning. We're learning.
This next question is one that you may not be able to answer. And if that's the case, we'll cut this out. What has there been any discussions for future expansion? And I know that probably is tied to rider numbers and ridership because obviously it's a business.
Yes, it absolutely is tied to how many riders we get. And that is, I get that question all the time. I'll answer the best I can, and I might say, no, Josh, I probably shouldn't talk about that. But so we have our trails were built by Pathfinder. They actually built Prove Grounds here in Dubuque. We are through 2 of 4 phases, but we're on a hold with them. And it is because we need to have, we need to bring in more riders. And we're not quite there yet. That being said, I see a lot of a world where, I mean, my crew can definitely cut some trails. And I think that, we'll kind of look into that as we finish out the season here and start looking at next season. But yeah, as soon as we, get to those numbers, I think that's the thing, right? Like we're starting to build some loyal riders and some loyal clientele, but they want new stuff, and I totally get that. I also, I see a potential, I said this earlier, but I want everybody riding bikes. That's my main goal. I want to be a steward of the sport. And I have this unique situation where I get to take like the initial suck out of mountain biking because I have a chairlift, so that to me, I think that's this amazing opportunity to, create this mountain bike school, to get people like, hey, I've always kind of wanted to try that, but I don't know how to start, I don't have a bike, and let's be honest, the first time you start riding a bike, you got to climb to do the fun stuff, so I think if we kind of build up like a skills area and some progressive but beginner friendly spots, we can get a heck of a lot more people riding bikes. And then we can show them, like, okay, well, there's a whole world to this, go check out this stuff here in Dubuque, or if you're in Chicago, go check out Payless Park, or, wherever you're coming from. If you're in La Crosse, there's a bunch of stuff, so that's kind of my personal goal. How many people can we get riding bikes? And I've got this cool opportunity to do so. So,
well, there you have it. If you want to see more trails at Chestnut, bring all your friends. And let's see those rider numbers go up.
That's absolutely right.
I got a question that I ask everybody, and you're pretty new into mountain biking, so this is going to be it. I think I'm really looking forward to the answer that you have. But this is a question that I typically ask, or the way I ask it is, what are the ingredients that you look for in a mountain bike community? And I say that with the caveat of be selfish, like the things that you actually want to see, not what you think would make a great community, but what you like personally want to see. And say you had to move from where you are now, what are the things you'd look for in a future place to get you to go there?
Sure. Well, I guess I can kind of start by the second half of that, because I did, right? Northern Michigan, there's awesome riding up there, and it's very bike friendly, and not just mountain biking. I could walk out my door and, ride 20 miles all like paved and never hit a road if I wanted to, and then, I could also ride to trails, so I guess the first answer is, establish trail systems and, community or the city that's willing to at least entertain the idea of putting more stuff in, right? I think a really important part of that is working with, maybe with that community, the ones that aren't riding, right? And saying like, hey, we're willing to, we're willing to do the work. We just need you to see us, And I think, kind of something that we're doing in Dubuque, Dubuque is not the most rider friendly place that I've been, but we're working on it, right? We're trying to develop bike lanes, and we have all these amazing mountain biking trail systems. So I think it's making sure that everybody in that community, not just the riders, are communicating and willing to talk to each other and be visible and be seen. And, I think that was a non-answer answer.
No, it was perfect. That was good because everybody's answer is different. And that's where I think this is key, is like you can get all these different answers and people can kind of take that feedback and, incorporate that into their own community if that's a need or whatever the case may be. And, you were just talking about Iowa specifically. And I think Iowa is a place that a lot of people don't associate with mountain biking, but it's the first place I ever personally did a race was in Iowa, was in Decorah. There's some great mountain biking in Decorah, especially if you're into the really old school, built in 1991 single track and hasn't changed since.
Yeah.
Although I have seen a machine on some social media posts in the woods there. So obviously some things are starting to change around Decorah.
Yeah.
But
sure.
You got other places in Iowa, Mason City, Iowa, they're embarking on a new trail initiative within that community. Sioux City, Iowa, the total other side of the state, on the Nebraska border, they have a magic carpet with a bike park that they just, finished in the last couple weeks.
Yeah. I've been reading a little bit about that. That's super exciting.
So while Iowa might not be the first place you think of when it comes to mountain biking, it's a place that a lot of people are mountain biking and more people are getting into.
Yeah,
it.
Absolutely. And, kind of what we were talking about at the beginning of the conversation, there are people that are getting into it, and COVID was a big help with that, which is a weird thing to say, but yeah, it's happening. It's a really exciting time to be getting into it. I feel like I'm kind of on the ground floor, and it's only going to go up from here.
So this is a mountain bike and trail specific podcast, but I do want to talk about winter. What were your thoughts on your first winter at Chestnut Mountain Resort? We've already alluded to the fact that the winter was horrible in terms of like snow part, but let's take that out of the equation. Like,
sure, yeah, it was. I mean, it was challenging for that reason. So I worked at Crystal for 7 seasons, and we never shut down once. And I think that we missed almost 20 days this year, including the week, I mentioned this before we were recording, but including the week between Christmas and New Year's, which is huge for us, But Chestnut is, on the ski side of it, just like the mountain bike side of it, Chestnut has this wealth of potential, and it is really fun, gnarly terrain. It's really steep, and I remember after we staggered opened everything just by how we were making snow, right? We finally got to a run called Crazy Horse, and I got to the bottom with one of the instructors, and I said, "This is Illinois, right?" I mean, coming from Michigan again, in Traverse City there are 7 ski resorts within an hour and a half drive. I mean, it was really easy to see new terrain and stuff, and some were had a little bit more vert, some had a little less. But it wasn't. It's not the same. Like, we were 475 top to bottom. You get your heart pumping, and it's really cool, really exciting. From my side of it, the snow sports world, we have a lot of really solid veteran instructors at Chestnut. We've got, I think we have 6 PSIA level 3 certified instructors. People that have been there for a long time. There's Chestnut is a community. People talk about Chestnut like, because they grew up there and they really love it. So it was really fun and exciting to see everybody's passion for the place. And it also helps me, kind of look towards the future. Like, okay, what can we do to make this the best ski school in the Midwest? Because that is ultimately my goal. And I think, it started with a little bit more structure, a little bit more organization. Jumping back in, we're back to being a PSIA school, keeping, routine clinics every weekend with those, sort of those trainers that I mentioned on both the ski and snowboard side, and kind of working on the products that we're offering. Basically, when I got in there, they kind of had the same lessons that they've had for a really long time. So I was able to kind of jump in and say, okay, well, let's take a look at what some other places are doing and see if we can kind of meet in the middle. And funny that you asked that, Josh, because when I get to the office tomorrow, it's officially I'm working on snow sports. I got to dedicate a couple of days a week to snow sports, which is weird because it's like, beautiful and 82 degrees out and still riding a lot of bikes. But I got to start thinking about winter a little bit.
Yeah, but Labor Day, as we record this, Labor Day is not far off. And
yeah, that's right.
That's the start of school. I mean, some schools have already gone into session. Unfortunately, I've noticed a leaf or two falling from trees around here.
Yeah.
Which is always a sad time of the year for me because as we've talked, I work in the winter industry as well, part-time, but if I could mountain bike year round, I would.
Yeah. Me too. It's, but no, skiing will be fun. And it's for me, it's really exciting to learn a new place and get to know all the players involved and stuff. So, but I am definitely, it doesn't feel like there's been a whole lot of summer because it's been very rainy and now it's finally feels good, but it's starting to cool off a little bit,
Yeah, for sure. Well, before we close this one out, is there anything we should mention? I forgot. I was going to talk about this when you got on the season pass kick. You're also a Lone Pass.
Oh yeah.
Resort.
Yeah,
and that place, the Lone Pass is growing considerably.
Yeah. So yeah, they've got over 40 resorts. Rob just sent out an email, kind of with some data saying, how many people have been using it and where they've been using it and stuff. Well, I mean, we go back to, the ski industry, right? Like that's modeled off the Indy Pass, and the Icon Pass and the Epic Pass are, they're kind of game changers. Skiing is, it's expensive, and that's the steep barrier to that sport. The Indy Pass has helped out, a lot. And of course it's small guys like us, small independent resorts, but you can now pay a couple $100 and you get to ski at a bunch of different places. That's a pretty amazing thing. So the Lone Pass, that same idea, while I think mountain biking bikes are expensive, but it's not necessarily expensive to ride places, that barrier isn't there. It creates awareness for other places like, hey, there's, in the Midwest here, there are seven different kind of either resorts or bike parks, shuttle access maybe, but and if you go to 4 of them, you've paid for your Lone Pass.
Yeah, exactly. It's a pretty genius model. As listeners know, we've had Joey and Rob on the podcast, and I'm a Lone Pass, member. Technically this podcast is an affiliate of the Lone Pass in terms of like pass sales. Their product is good. More importantly, and maybe most importantly, it's helping to create more awareness of what's going on so we can get more people coming to more resorts, because I think that's the biggest thing is getting that awareness out there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you mentioned it, when we were chatting about building more trails, I'd love to build more trails, but tell your friends and bring them, keep them coming, The Lone Pass is a great way to do that. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, Luke, before I wrap this up, is there anything you want to close with? Thank yous or something that you want to talk about that we didn't hit on yet?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I definitely have some people that I should thank. Being new to the area, I feel super at home already. I haven't even been here a year. And I really owe that to mountain biking. I mentioned our local, our IMBA chapter here, Timber. We've got a great board there. Sam, Keegan, Alex, Adam, Eric, Matt, thanks to those guys for kind of taking me in. Want to thank Dave Hardig from Bicycle World, Brian Walsh from Free Flight. I've got a couple of people back in Michigan, Fish, Earl, Chris Remy, that kind of helped me on this mountain bike journey. Definitely have to thank my crew at Farside there. Tim, he's a trail crew supervisor. He's a perfectionist and got a good eye for it. Hugh, he's an awesome mechanic. Got Carter, Michael, Andy, BJ, Austin, honorary crew member, Andy. We have a pretty heavy patrol scene. Also, we want to make sure everybody's safe, and God forbid that, something bad happens, we want to be able to get you out. So we want to thank Don Steen and Greg, Brian, Sam, and Peter, Janan and Mike, and thank my wife, Renee, because she's pretty rad that she lets me do my dream job,
Yeah, that you are the most organized thank you person I've had on the podcast in over 180 episodes.
Man, I didn't want to forget anybody.
So that's incredible.
I probably did.
You got a lot of people, but that's really good. Well, Luke, hopefully I can get one more trip down to the far side before the middle of October when the season wraps up. But I want to thank you for coming out, taking time out of your day and coming on the podcast. I also want to thank the management at Galina Chestnut Resort for taking a chance on mountain biking and bringing lift access to the upper Midwest, because prior to the far side there, we don't have a lot of lift access here in the upper Midwest, so it's awesome to have that as an amenity, because I think bike parks serve a vital role within our full mountain bike ecosystem. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Heck yeah. Well, thank you, Josh. Appreciate it. Let me know if you're heading my way. We'll get some laps in.
I will, for sure. Thank you for listening. If you like what you've heard, please take the time to share these shows with others. Sharing these shows will help create awareness of both the guests who have taken the time to be on the show and the podcast series itself. Also, if you're new to the Trail Effect Podcast, check out our ever-expanding library of episodes. If you listen to the Trail Effect Podcast on Apple or Spotify, please don't forget to leave a rating and review, as this is one of the best ways to show our support for the Trail Effect Podcast. Also, don't forget to check out Cooley Creative at www.dudejustsendit.com. For additional ways to help support the Trail Effect Podcast, check out the affiliate links tab at the Trail Effect website, where you'll find links to Kettle Mountain Apparel, Worldwide Cyclery, and Trail One components. By using the affiliate links found at www.traileffectpodcast.com, a small commission will come back to the podcast, which will help keep this thing going. This podcast has been edited and produced by Evolution Trail Services. Thank you again for listening.